Materialism is shallow, especially when applied to living things. The spirit is primary, and matter is simply the vehicle for the expression of the spirit. Race is not a group anatomy. Race is not independent of the soil. Race is not independent of spirit and history. Races are not classifiable except on an arbitrary basis. Race is not a rigid, permanent, collective characterization of human beings, which remains the same always throughout history. Race is fluid, gliding with history over the fixed skeletal form determined by the soil. Before you accuse me of some form of neo-spiritual Marxism, understand that these were quotes from Francis Yackee, a man so far to the right he made Mussolini look like a Girl Scout, and Oswald Spengler, the great 20th century philosopher of civilization, who is often quoted by the modern right. These quotes simply show a total rejection of materialism and the outmoded sciences that were born from it, and they show a complete conviction in spirituality. Carl Jung, when visiting America for the first time, saw a group of miners, all white men, and believed that they were the product of thorough blood mixing with American Indians. They had all the body type features of the American Indian, save the colors of their skin, hair, and eyes. He assumed they all must have some American Indian grandparents or parents. When he expressed this to his American guide, it was made quite clear to him that each man had not a single drop of Indian blood, but was purely and entirely white as far back as their families can be remembered. I'm going to commit the cardinal sin of referencing Franz Boas, a Jewish anthropologist, pro-communist and globalist. He made accurate observations about the physical features of people from all over the world, while taking careful note of their genealogy. He discovered that the children of immigrants, immediately, with the very first generation, take on the skeletal features and body types of the people who commonly live in their new environment. Now, of course, he used this research to show that there is no such thing as race, or that there is only the human race. And this is a strong talking point for globalists, capitalists, and communists, seeing as these types are anti-spiritual and utterly materialistic in their outlook. But his observations on the physical biological features of people are truthful and accurate. The data is there and it's irrefutable. Simply look around you. You can usually tell when someone is an American and not a German or an Englishman or an African or an Asian just by seeing a photo of them. All of our skeletons have changed, and they belong to a particular type of aesthetic. Further research of this type has been carried out by people such as Clarence Gravely and Bernard William, and has been published in the journal American Anthropologist. And also, interestingly, indigenous people from all over the world generally have a common belief that you cannot conquer a land and move your people there, because they will inherit the ancestral spirits of that land and become their people, and they will no longer be your people. Rupert Sheldrake has his theory of morphic resonance, which is based on Goethe's theory called Erbpflanze. Basically, organic materials and living entities, like minerals, plants, animals, and people, produce an energetic field around themselves which affects other materials and organisms within its range. Rudolf Steiner, the Austrian mystic and clairvoyant, said that it is the geomagnetic forces created by the minerals of a place which determine the skeletal structure of people. What I'm saying with all of this is that the idea of race is much more nebulous, mysterious, and unquantifiable than materialists and Darwinists and genealogists would have you believe. Biology does not determine your race. Race is something you feel. It is a set of beliefs, worldviews, feelings, thoughts, and actions that determine your race. It is your ethnos. You can change your ethnos, which is a shared language, a shared geospatial territory, a shared belief in a particular origin, and a set of customs, manners, and outlooks. If you move from one place in the world to another, and you adopt all of these things for yourself, you think and speak the new language, you believe what they believe, you do as they do, and you live in their territory, you are now one of them. You have changed your culture. You have changed your ethnos. We call this assimilation. People do it all the time. For more on this, you can read Alexander Dugin's Ethnosociology, which is basically just a book on the history and philosophy of ethnosociology as compared to regular sociology. Examples: Winston Churchill was born in England, but by all accounts, his sentiments, his view of reality, his political and economic thinking and activity were entirely puritanical American. Americans can be born and raised in England. Ezra Pound, William Joyce, and Douglas Chandler were born in America, but were clearly very European in their thinking, their activity, and their views, proving that Europeans can be born and raised in America. Even a Prussian can be born in Rome to 2 Italian parents. Just look at Mussolini. While being born within a particular phenotype group and being surrounded by that group may provide you with some initial dispositions towards certain ways of acting and thinking, those dispositions can be altered throughout one's life, and generally fairly easy. Race is something you have and express. It's not something to which you belong. In fact, it belongs to you. It is a qualitative difference, not a quantitative one. It is not about skull shape or skin color or any other materialistic phenomenon. It comes from the cultural spirit to which you adhere. If you watch my video, High Cultures Are Organisms, I explain the discovery made by spiritual masters and philosophers that individual humans are like cells in the body of a spiritual organism known as your high culture. A new term has been adopted since the 1990s to refer to it. You may have heard cultural oversoul. So the oversoul, which you feel and express and attune yourself to, provides you with your race. To the extent to which your thinking, feeling, speaking, willing, and acting is in accordance with the impulses of that oversoul, you have that race. This can actually change in an individual's life. Through spiritual awakening, emigrating to a new land, through conscious choice, being surrounded by a society of a particular high culture, one can have a new race and give up the old one. In the part of America in which I live, and the type of community it is, there are many different people descended from all various parts of the world, but we do not segregate ourselves into different neighborhoods like they do in the big cities. We live amongst each other. We're very close neighbors and friends, and while we may have different political and economic views, different specific goals in life, different religious beliefs, we would never consider each other to be cultural outsiders, others, or enemies. Never could we imagine being each other's object of war or conflict. It's unthinkable. We have barbecues and pool parties, we go kayaking together, we teach each other's children in school, we play recreational sports together, we work together, we produce artwork together. There's a harmonious coherence here that we feel intuitively. We have all assimilated to the American cultural spirit. Now, the American oversoul is hardly an extant recognizable thing. It is barely a fetus gestating in the womb of history. The American high culture will be born roughly 2,000 years from now, and its characteristics are entirely unknown at this point and can only be theorized. But this is a story for another time. It is not the subject of this video. However, we as individuals are the cells of this fetus gestating in this womb and feel at ease about it in the rural setting in which we exist. Again, the crime and intercultural conflict occurring in the big cities is a phenomenon caused by the economic and political pressures that are magnified and exacerbated there by poor living conditions, propaganda, poor education, criminal conspiracy, and adherence to outmoded ways of thinking, which are compounded and reinforced by close proximity to many people and the tight links of communication networks that are characteristic of large population centers. These artificial problems are more easily ignored and managed in places where our alarm clocks are the morning gales, and our pastime is gardening, and our nervous systems are not overwhelmed or burnt out by external stimuli. But anyway, I went to high school with many Jewish people, and most of them think and act like Aryans, despite the mentalities of their grandparents. One of my Pakistani friends, that I've known since I was born, wears flannel shirts and goose-down vests, he owns a horse, and he listens to Willie Nelson. This dude is whiter than me. I also know plenty of white people who grew up to work on Wall Street and at other banks and in law firms and are thoroughly dedicated to perpetuating 19th century ideas, policy, and economics to benefit therefrom, much like the Jewish culture distorter. These white people are Jewish in their hearts, although they have not a drop of Jewish blood in them. This is why the adherence to materialistic biological racial theories, professed by both the left and the right, and expressed in their desires for segregation, the balkanization of America, or just the obsession with sociological difference and perceived privileges and hierarchies regarding race, will ultimately fail to solve our problems. It may solve some material problems, such as with demographic conflict and crime. It may create and protect the aesthetic type of person you wish to see born into the world. It may preserve certain superficial aspects of culture like diet and clothing style and art style. And these may be some great benefits to creating ethnostates. So I understand the benefits of this possibility. But there's a fundamental problem here. If my Pakistani friend was forcefully kicked out of this region and moved to another region where all the West Asians and Arabs are meant to live, he would be miserable. He would not be welcome amongst them. He is totally alien to them. He doesn't think or act like they do. It wouldn't be fair to him. He thinks like us. He acts like us. And let's say all of the Jewish people were put into their own region, and your region is empty of them. What about all of the white people who adhere to economic thinking, capitalism and communism? All of the white people who act like Jews? What are you going to do with them? And what about the Jewish people who think and act like Aryans and provide benefit to your culture? You would be kicking out the artists, thinkers, and workers who are spiritually Aryan, and your culture will now be weaker and lesser for it. You would kick out all the blacks, even the ones who think and act like you, and force them to live in communities where they feel unwelcome and unsafe. Wouldn't life be so simple if every friend was a blonde-haired, blue-eyed person and every enemy was dark-haired and brown-eyed? Oh, everything would be so much easier. How easy it all would be. But only an idiot fails to see that life is far more complex than that. People who see things in this simplistic, materialistic, immature way want fast, easy solutions because they want to benefit from them now. They're impatient. It is selfishness, it is laziness, it is cruelty, and it is short-sighted. You would kick out all of the Jews, but then realize that you are still utilizing capitalist economics and usury. Your women are still making OnlyFans videos for money in a desire to be independent from a husband or from men in general, while your men are still paying for these videos like weak losers. You still desire the acquisition of wealth. Gaining money is still the highest goal of your life. You still believe in voting rights to secure your own selfish political gains. You will continue to lobby and bribe politicians to serve your economic and religious interests. You'll still loan money from banks at interest and engage in usury. So maybe the Jews aren't really the problem. Perhaps you are the problem. You are spiritually weak and impotent. Pathologies only affect weak organisms with poor immune systems. Culture pathologies are the same by analogy. You fall for the tricks of the culture distorters because you cave in to social pressures, desire wealth, or fall for extortion tactics. You took out a student loan at interest because you were pressured into ascending the bureaucratic and social status pyramid instead of imagining and choosing a different, more honorable life. You took out a loan at interest to start a business because you desire wealth, or you fail to imagine and see another way to secure your economic needs. You fall for these tricks because perhaps you are weak and selfish, just like the culture distorters. You do not follow a strict code of conduct rooted in spirituality. You can blame the system all you want, but the system exists because you endorse it, hoping to one day become rich. You would never undermine capitalism so long as you hope to be rich one day, or believe in the puritanical work ethic, which is the hallmark of both capitalism and communism. Our leaders could make positive changes to this system, but the leaders come from us and are just as weak as the rest of us. And we become blinded by money and power once we start making headway toward leadership. When we are finally in a position to make the change, we either decide not to follow through because we are suddenly wealthy, thanks to our leadership position, and we become pacified by this wealth. Or we're surrounded by conspirators who threaten and coerce us into not following through. And we're assassinated by the people who benefit from the current order of things in the worst cases. Sometimes because our security team was bribed or coerced, seeing as they are generally weak-minded mercenary types and not loyal warriors. Our problems are spiritual in nature and require a spiritual solution. You must stop loving money. You must become incorruptible and immutable. Accept no bribes, fear no threats, bend to no coercion. You must cease with this pursuit of individual happiness, this every man for himself mentality, this nonsense, and have a sense of responsibility for the culture in which you live and a sense of honor and propriety over your own life. Stop falling for the tricks of the culture distorters. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, as they say. Recognize usury as a crime and neither give nor take loans at interest. Do these things, and the culture distorter will have no power here. The only reason the distorter does what he does is because he thrives in liberal, democratic, economic-oriented, capitalistic, and communistic societies. So long as you have liberal, democratic, and money-oriented beliefs, you are also a culture distorter. Your biological race has nothing to do with this. This is simply your spiritual orientation. Do you believe in outmoded, outdated, senile 19th century ideas, just like the culture distorter whom you wish to exile? Or do you seek to get in touch with your oversoul, your high culture, and discover the current spirit of the age and live by those principles? You will find these principles are, in fact, today, anti-capitalistic and anti-democratic and pro-authoritarian, which a lot of Westerners do not like to hear. If you lack spiritual discipline, self-awareness, and self-control, you will be taken in by ideologies, any ideologies. You will believe whatever smarter men than you tell you to believe. You will believe in nationalism, materialistic racial theories, capitalism, communism, democracy, constitutionalism, and so many other things because they sound nice. They sound clever. They sound like they'll solve your problems on paper or create a good society. But these ideas are old and tired. The 20th century has defeated and disproven them. They are corpses. The movements who live by these outmoded ideas and seek to establish or re-implement them are akin to necromancers, raising the dead to do their ineffective bidding. You will only notice that after you have quieted your mind and looked within yourself to your innermost truth, the core of your being. The pure, unconditioned mind sees clearly. Your conditioned mind is polluted. It's polluted with ideologies created by other people. Your conditioned mind caves into social pressures and desires. Only after radical mental purification brought about by self-awareness, emotional control, and spiritual discipline will you begin to see reality the way you were meant to see it, from a higher vantage of calmness, clarity, and truth. Then you can creatively act toward better solutions that call upon the strengths and talents unique to yourself. Only then will you find what you need to do in this life according to historical necessity and your place in this history, unpolluted and uncoerced by anyone. Only then are you qualified to raise or teach children, not before. Only then are you able to make political decisions or protect those who do. Only then can you sentence other people for crimes. Only then can you make real, lasting cultural change and advancement. Anything short of this spiritual transformation and mental purification, and you will remain ruled by emotions and subject to culture distortions, and you'll support ineffective political and economic theories which will only prolong or exacerbate our problems. Kicking people out of your homeland wholesale based on what you believe about race and not what race actually is in spiritual fact may solve a handful of problems while causing a few new ones. If you want to kick out the culture distorters, that's completely fine. Just make sure you understand how to identify one. Their biology may have very little to do with it. It would be a shame to kick out all of our friends just because they look different. And it would be an equal shame to allow culture distorters to live amongst us simply because they came from the same genetic stock as us. Keep your head clear and your heart clear. Tread wisely and do not get swept up in hatred, vengeance, or the mob mentality. A superior culture for our future requires a superior form of justice rooted in spiritual knowledge and perception, in wisdom. A mature leader knows that there are no quick and easy answers to this problem and to the culture distortions which plague us. Begin with yourself. Be incorruptible. Eliminate any and all culture distortions and pathologies within yourself so you can better recognize them in others. Judge yourself before you judge others.